A man went to a hotel to cheat on his wife. A goon found out and started beating him up. After that, the goon began blackmailing him. This goon was ruthless and wouldn't hesitate to kill to get what he wanted. There's another twist in the movie that makes it even more interesting. Hello friends, today I'm going to explain a 2005 Hollywood thriller movie called Derailed. Make sure to watch till the end for its powerful ending. Now let's dive into the explanation without any delay. The movie begins with our main character, Charles, and his family. He has a wife and a daughter. His daughter suffers from a severe case of diabetes, and despite multiple surgeries, her body rejects the transplanted organs. A new, expensive medicine has become available, and Charles and his wife have worked hard for the past 7 years to save up for it. One day, while heading to work, Charles misses his train. He's running late and doesn't have time to buy a separate ticket. A ticket inspector catches him and starts giving him trouble. However, a woman named Lucinda, who's also on the train, steps in and buys a ticket for Charles. Charles thanks her and says he'll pay her back. He suggests they meet on the same train the next day so he can return the money. Lucinda jokes that he'll have to pay extra as a tax for the favor. This starts a conversation between them, and they begin to learn about each other's lives. Lucinda is an investment banker at a big firm, while Charles works in advertising. When their journey ends, Charles says he'll see her again on the train tomorrow. Lucinda playfully calls it a date, and Charles is thrilled. In the next scene, we see Charles at his office. A new character is introduced, Winston. He used to work in the mailroom at Charles's office. Charles and Winston became good friends after an incident where Winston was illegally stealing computers from the office. Charles saw him, but chose to ignore it, and Winston was very grateful for this. One day, Charles has a meeting at work and learns that he's been fired from a major account. He's angry with his boss, but his boss tells him that he hasn't been in the right mindset lately. He advises Charles to improve himself, assuring him that new clients will come. Charles's boss is a calm and understanding character. At home, Charles's wife is completely focused on caring for their daughter, who has a severe medical condition. Because of this, she doesn't have time for Charles, and the stress of their daughter's illness has left them unable to be intimate. The next day, Charles meets Lucinda again on the train. They talk about their families, and Lucinda reveals that she's also married. They continue to get to know each other better before going their separate ways. However, Charles can't stop thinking about her. He finds her number on her company's website and calls her, inviting her out for a date that night. Lucinda agrees and meets Charles. During their date, Charles asks about her husband, and she explains that he's often out of town for work, leaving them little time for each other. Charles also opens up about his daughter's condition. There's no romance between them at first, but after having a drink, Charles kisses her. Lucinda admits she's never cheated on her husband before. As they're talking, a rude man approaches Lucinda. When Charles tries to intervene, the man insults him, and Charles punches him in response. After leaving the bar, Charles kisses Lucinda again, and they take a cab to a hotel. Lucinda insists on choosing a hotel where her husband doesn't stay, and they book a room. While they're getting intimate, a goon bursts into the room. Charles is terrified and offers the man money, but the goon isn't interested. He brutally attacks Charles and forces himself on Lucinda, while Charles is helpless. After the goon leaves, Charles regains consciousness and feels immense guilt for what happened to Lucinda. She's deeply upset, and Charles suggests calling the police, but Lucinda refuses, fearing her husband will find out. The next day, Charles goes to work despite his injuries. His wife tells him to go home and rest, but he lies to her, saying he was injured during a robbery. Meanwhile, Charles receives a call from the goon, whose name is LaRoche. LaRoche demands $20,000, threatening to tell Charles's wife about the affair if he doesn't pay. Desperate, Charles goes to Lucinda to discuss the situation. She gives him some money, but says it's all she can offer without her husband finding out. Charles can't use the money saved for his daughter's treatment, so he ends up stealing $20,000 from his company's account. The next day, Charles goes to the agreed location and hands over the money to LaRoche. Before leaving, leaving Charles deeply disturbed. Overwhelmed, Charles confides in his boss, admitting that he cheated on his wife. His boss brushes it off, saying everyone cheats and not to take it too seriously. During a work break, Charles is smoking when his friend Winston approaches him. Winston shares that he used to smoke in high school, but ended up in jail for drugs. Charles asks about Winston's jail experience, and Winston reveals he had to kill a man just to survive, explaining that jail forces you to do terrible things. That night, as Charles is heading home, LaRoche calls him again, demanding more money. Charles angrily protests, saying he already paid. LaRoche insists on $100,000, claiming it will be the last payment. Charles suddenly realizes how LaRoche got his number and traces the call to LaRoche's house. When Charles arrives home, he's horrified to find LaRoche talking to his wife, pretending to be Charles's friend. Charles is terrified, but after his wife leaves, LaRoche threatens him again before walking away. Desperate, Charles tells his lawyer everything. The lawyer criticizes him for not going to the police when LaRoche first attacked him, saying there's little they can do now. Feeling hopeless, Charles meets Winston for drinks and explains the situation. Winston offers to threaten LaRoche to make him back off, but he demands $10,000 for the job. Charles agrees and steals the money from his company again. That night, Charles and Winston go to confront LaRoche. However, LaRoche ambushes them and kills Winston. He then angrily demands the rest of the money from Charles. After LaRoche leaves, a sex worker approaches the scene, but LaRoche refuses her and hides Winston's body. Police arrive to patrol the area but don't notice the body and leave. Charles takes Winston's body and car to the river, attempting to dispose of them, but the car doesn't fully sink. Panicked, Charles flees. The next day, a police officer, who happens to be Winston's cousin, comes to investigate. Charles pretends to know nothing about the incident. Meanwhile, Charles receives another threatening call from LaRoche, who shouts at him for the money. Terrified, Charles withdraws all the money he had saved for his daughter's treatment and hands it over to LaRoche. Lucinda feels terrible for Charles, knowing how important that money was for his daughter. That night, Charles meets with the director again, who questions him about the missing money. Charles denies any involvement but feels immense guilt. He confesses to his wife that all their money is gone but promises to get it back. He consults his lawyer, planning to tell the police everything, but first, he goes to see Lucinda. At Lucinda's office, the receptionist reveals that Lucinda was only a temporary employee and doesn't hold any real position there. Shocked, Charles goes to Lucinda's house, only to discover it's a rented property. The agent shows him a brochure with a picture of a little girl, the same one Lucinda had shown Charles earlier. It becomes clear that Lucinda had lied about her life. Realizing he's been deceived, Charles starts searching for the train where he first met Lucinda, hoping to uncover the truth. One day, Charles sees Lucinda with another man and follows them. When the man leaves, Charles discovers that Lucinda meets LaRoche, who is actually her boyfriend. It turns out that Lucinda and LaRoche had planned everything together. Charles spends the entire day following Lucinda and notices that she takes the new man to the same hotel where she had taken Charles earlier. Charles books a room next to theirs and watches as Lucinda gets intimate with the man. LaRoche then enters to threaten the man, but Charles intervenes, knocking LaRoche unconscious. Outside, LaRoche has another accomplice, but Charles doesn't notice him yet. Charles drags LaRoche into Lucinda's room. The man with Lucinda is confused, but Charles explains everything. Lucinda claims she doesn't know LaRoche, but Charles demands his money back. As they argue, LaRoche regains consciousness and refuses to return the money. Lucinda panics and tells LaRoche to give Charles the money, saying she wants out. LaRoche admits he feels guilty for taking the money meant for Charles's daughter. Lucinda and LaRoche start fighting, and the man who came with them suddenly attacks. LaRoche takes advantage of the chaos and kills the man. He then tries to kill Charles, but runs out of bullets. At that moment, LaRoche's accomplice enters the room. Charles grabs a gun and kills LaRoche. The accomplice attacks Charles, but Charles manages to kill him as well. During the chaos, Lucinda also dies. Soon, the police arrive and question Charles. He claims he was in another room and only heard noises, so no one suspects him. In the lobby, Charles notices a bag with his name on it in the luggage. He identifies himself and takes the money without raising any suspicion. When Charles returns to his office, his boss confronts him about the stolen money. The boss tells Charles to return the money and the court won't punish him. He can keep his job because the boss trusts him and knows Charles was in trouble but couldn't share it. Charles agrees to return the money. Some time passes, and Charles is sentenced to community service. He is assigned to teach prisoners in jail. One day, he asks the prisoners to write in notebooks. He finds one notebook with a detailed account of everything he did, and on the back it says, "Meet me in the laundry room." Charles goes there, and everyone leaves. To his shock, he finds LaRoche still alive. LaRoche says he was happy to hear Charles was teaching there. As LaRoche tries to kill Charles, Charles stabs him with a wooden knife. Charles reveals he chose this jail deliberately, and the knife he used was a gift from Winston. With this, Charles finally avenges Winston's death. After LaRoche's death, an investigation begins. Winston's cousin, who is a detective, uncovers the truth. The director learns everything but decides to let Charles go because he took revenge for Winston. The director covers up all the evidence. In the final scene, Charles's daughter undergoes a successful operation and can now go to school. Charles and his wife repair their relationship and the family is happy again. The movie ends on this positive note. If you liked this video, please give it a like. I bring many such movie explanations, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon for notifications. We'll meet again with another new movie. Thank you for watching.